The world outside Leo's study window was small. Trimmed lawns, quiet streets, Tuesday morning garbage truck. But inside this room, the world was vast. Endless blue skies, distant horizons. Leo sat in the captain's chair, an old, repurposed car seat. To him, the command center of a Boeing 747. Wires snaked across the floor like vines, monitors, yokes, throttle quadrants. This was his sanctuary. This was his escape. He had built it piece by piece over 5 long years. Each component was a small victory. Rudder pedals he'd saved for months, the overhead panel with dozens of switches, a lucky find on an online auction. His wife Clara called it his expensive hobby. She didn't understand the pull. She couldn't see the magic. For Leo, it wasn't just a game. It was a calling he never answered in the real world. A dream he was too afraid to chase when he was younger, grounded by practicality and fear. Now, in his late 40s, this was the closest he'd get to the real thing. The room smelled of warm plastic and ozone. The low hum of computer fans was a constant, comforting drone. It was the sound of a machine ready to fly. Leo leaned forward, his face lit by the glow of 3 large monitors. They formed a panoramic cockpit window showing a digital tarmac. Every detail was meticulously rendered. Heat haze shimmering above the asphalt. Ground crew moving with purpose in the distance. The sense of anticipation was familiar. Welcome. A feeling of control. Master of a powerful, complex machine. Outside this room, Leo was just a man, an accountant staring at spreadsheets, a husband, a father, daughter away at college. He was dependable, he was quiet, he was unremarkable. But in here, he was Captain Leo Vance. He was the one in charge, the one making split-second decisions, keeping hundreds safe at 500 miles per hour. Here, he mattered. He adjusted his headset, the soft foam cups blocking out the last remnants of the real world. Clara stood in the doorway for a moment, unseen. She watched him. His back was to her, his posture straight and focused. He was talking to himself, or rather, to his virtual co-pilot.
"Check flaps. Set trim. We're on schedule," he murmured, his voice low and professional.
She sighed softly. It was an old, familiar scene. Leo, lost in his world of make-believe. She remembered when he first started building the simulator. It was a small setup then, a joystick, a single monitor on his desk. Now, it had consumed an entire room, a digital kingdom he ruled every night after dinner. She used to find it charming. His passion was infectious at first. He would excitedly explain the principles of aerodynamics, the intricacies of a cold and dark startup procedure. She would listen, nod, try to share his enthusiasm. But over time, the charm had faded. It was replaced by a quiet sense of distance. He was physically present in their home, but his mind was thousands of feet in the air, somewhere over the Pacific, the North Atlantic. He was a ghost in their house, haunting the hallways, until it was time to retreat to his cockpit and disappear completely for the night.
Leo? He didn't hear her at first. He was too engrossed. Leo! She repeated, a little louder this time.
He flinched, startled, as if woken from a deep sleep. He pulled one side of his headset off, turning in his chair.
"Oh, hey Clara, sorry, I didn't hear you." His eyes kept darting back to the screens.
I'm heading to bed. Don't stay up too late, okay? You have that early meeting tomorrow.
"Yeah, I will, just finishing this approach into Hong Kong." He was looking past her at the glowing runway on his monitor. "Tricky wins tonight."
She lingered for another second, hoping he might say more, but he didn't. He just turned back to his controls. She walked away, the soft hum of his virtual engines following her down the quiet, dark hallway. The flight plan was for a routine trip, a red-eye from Los Angeles to New York, Flight 734. The call sign was one he had made up, a favorite he used often. In his meticulously kept logbook, he had flown as Flight 734 dozens of times. Tonight the weather was clear. The virtual air traffic control had given him his clearance. Everything was by the book. Pre-flight checks, engine startup, taxiing to the runway. He pushed the throttle levers forward. The low hum in his headphones swelled into a deep, powerful roar. The digital scenery of LAX began to blur as the massive jet accelerated down the runway.
V1. Bum, he said aloud, his voice steady. The point of no return. Rotate. He was airborne.
For the next few hours, he was in his element. He watched the digital sun rise over the flat plains of the Midwest. The flight was nearing its end. Below, the dense urban sprawl of the New York metropolitan area was beginning to take shape. He disconnected the autopilot, taking manual control for the final approach into JFK. This was his favorite part, the challenge of a smooth landing. He lowered the flaps. He extended the landing gear. The plane slowed, descending gracefully toward the runway lights.
500, 400, 300. He was moments away from another perfect flight.
But then, something happened. A sudden, violent shudder, a loud, alarming bang.
Stall! Stall! Red lights flashed across his main instrument panel.
He felt his stomach drop. He fought it, pulling back on the yoke, pushing the throttles to maximum. It was too late. The runway lights rushed up to meet him. The screen went black. Silence. Leo sat frozen in his chair, staring at the blank monitors. It was just a game, a glitch maybe, frustrating but meaningless. He sighed, powered down the system, and went to bed. Sleep did not come easily. Leo tossed and turned, the image of the runway rushing up to meet him replaying in his mind. It was a visceral, unsettling memory. He could almost feel the phantom lurch in his stomach, the jolt of the uncontrolled descent. He told himself it was ridiculous, to be so affected by a piece of software, a simple glitch in the code. The alarm clock buzzed at 6:30 a.m., dragging Leo from a fitful sleep. He felt groggy and unrested. He moved on autopilot, his mind circling back to the simulator. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes.
Clara, you look exhausted. Did you stay up all night in that room again? Leo, forcing a smile. No, I shut it down early. Just had a rough night sleeping. Clara, try to have a good day. Don't forget dinner with the Hendersons on Saturday. He nodded, forcing a smile.
The day at the office was a blur. His mind kept drifting, replaying the final moments of Flight 734. During his lunch break, he sat at his desk, scrolling absently through a news website. He was about to close the browser when a small headline, tucked away at the bottom of the page, caught his eye. The headline was simple: Airliner feared down on approach to JFK. His heart skipped a beat. He clicked the link. The article was sparse on details. It stated that a red-eye flight from the West Coast had lost contact with air traffic control during its final approach. The time of the incident corresponded almost exactly with the time of his simulated crash. A cold dread began to creep up his spine. He quickly closed the browser window. He looked around his office. Everything was normal. But for Leo, a crack had appeared in the foundation of his reality. It was just a coincidence. It had to be. For 2 days, Leo kept his promise to himself. He didn't go near the study. He tried to be present. At the Hendersons' dinner party, making small talk, he played the part of the normal, well-adjusted husband. But underneath, a battle was raging. The pull of the cockpit was a physical ache. He found himself thinking about it constantly, his hands adjusting a throttle, trimming the aircraft. Clara noticed his distraction. The news about the JFK crash had been updated. It was confirmed. A Boeing 747 had gone down. Flight 734. The same type he flew in his simulation. But Leo knew. In his gut, he knew. By Sunday night, he couldn't stand it. The anxiety of not knowing worse than potential horror. The closed study door seemed to pulse. He hesitated, hand on the doorknob. This was a bad idea. But he couldn't. The need to fly. The need to test his impossible theory. He turned the knob and pushed the door open, warm electronics washing over him. He decided on a different flight this time. He chose a flight from San Francisco to Seattle. He would call it Flight 1107. The aircraft was a Boeing 737. The weather was programmed to be challenging: heavy rain, low cloud cover, and strong, gusty winds. The pre-flight checks felt more important than ever. He pushed the throttles forward, and he was soon climbing through the thick layer of clouds. The moment the plane entered the cloud tops, the turbulence began. He gripped the yoke, his knuckles turning white. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His eyes darted across the instrument panel. He was flying entirely on instruments now. His entire reality was compressed into the glowing dials and digital readouts. He had to keep 2 needles on his display perfectly centered. Despite the difficulty, a part of him was exhilarated. This was the ultimate test. It was a duel between man and machine, between pilot and storm.
500. He was almost there. His hands were slick with sweat, but his movements were steady.
Then it happened again. A sudden, gut-wrenching shudder. A deafening bang, just like before.
Stall! Stall! No, not again. It couldn't be.
The nose of the 737 pitched violently downwards. The plane was a dead weight, a metal coffin plummeting from the sky. The screen went black. He didn't move. He just stared, the silence in the room roaring in his ears. He sat in the captain's chair for what felt like an hour. The darkness of the monitors reflected his own pale, shocked face. It wasn't a glitch. It couldn't be. Not twice. Not in the exact same way. He stood up, his legs feeling weak and unsteady. He stumbled to his home office. He booted up the family's old desktop computer. He needed to know. He had to know. He refreshed the page again and again. Then, on a local Seattle news station's website, he saw it. A single breaking news banner. The headline was larger now, more definitive. Commercial jet crashes on approach to SeaTac. Leo felt the air leave his lungs in a silent gasp. It was real. It had happened again. He had done it again. A flight from San Francisco, a Boeing 737, lost contact during the final storm-ravaged moments of its approach. Every detail matched his simulation. The thought was so monstrous, so insane. He was a puppeteer, and the strings were attached to a real plane, filled with real people. He stumbled back to his study, the room he had once considered his sanctuary. Now, it felt like a tomb. He went to the bookshelf with his flight logs. He pulled them down, dust puffing into the air. He began the grim task. He started with a flight from a year ago, a simulated engine fire on a flight to Denver. The search results loaded. His blood ran cold. He checked a flight from 2 years ago. He found the corresponding report. The pattern was undeniable. It was a pattern of static, a hidden connection he had never noticed until now. For hours, he sat there, cross-referencing his past. The initial shock and horror began to curdle into a profound, soul-crushing guilt. All those times he had failed a simulation. The times he had gotten frustrated and simply reset the scenario, annoyed at the inconvenience. But each of those failures, he now realized, was a sentence. He was an unwitting executioner. The man reading a book, the woman sleeping by the window, the child excited for their vacation. They were real people. Their lives had been in his hands. He began to question everything. Was the simulator itself evil? Or was it him? The overhead panel he bought from an online auction. It was supposedly from a real decommissioned aircraft. Could that be the source? A haunted piece of hardware? Or was the software to blame? Had it also deepened the connection to the real world? The questions spiraled in his mind. He was lost in a nightmare of his own making. He had to understand how it worked. He had to find a way to control it, to stop a flight that was already in motion. A plan began to form in his mind. If his successes and failures in the simulation directly translated to reality, then he had a measure of control. He had to become an active agent. He had to see if he could deliberately cause a specific, non-catastrophic failure, and then successfully manage and resolve it. It was a horrifying ethical calculation. He scanned the real-time flight schedules. Each line of text represented a metal tube filled with souls. He felt like a sniper choosing a target. The next 48 hours were a blur of intense preparation. They researched the exact layout of London's Heathrow Airport. They studied the schematics of a 747's engine.
Leo, on phone. No matter what happens, I love you. Clara VO, crying. I love you too, Leo. Please, just come home. Leo, softly. Goodbye, Clara.
Arthur, are you ready? Leo nodding. It's time.
He sat down in the captain's chair for what he knew would be the last time. In London, the real sovereign 447 was beginning to board. He began the pre-flight checklist. He wasn't preparing for flight. He was setting a trap. He reached the engine start sequence. This was the moment. He initiated startup for engine 3. He deliberately overrode a safety valve. A warning light flashed. Fuel leak, Eng 3.
Engine fire! Engine fire! Engine fire!
Pilot VO, Mayday, Mayday, Sovereign 447, uncontained engine fire at the gate. We are evacuating. Narrator VO, it was working.
He fought his instincts. He had to let it burn. He had to ensure the damage was catastrophic. But the curse wouldn't give up. The simulator began to fight him. The game tried to correct his mistake.
Leo, growling. You're not getting away.
Arthur, yelling. Don't let it. Keep it engaged. Don't let it disconnect.
Pilot VO, the fire is out of control. The wing structure is compromised. The aircraft is a total loss.
Leo sobbed with relief. He had done it. He had sacrificed the plane. The passengers were safe. The simulator screens went black. Not simulation ended, but connection terminated. He had broken the curse, or so he hoped. A year had passed. The study was no longer a cockpit. Clara had come home. Life had slowly, cautiously begun to resemble something normal. It was a Tuesday evening, a scene of perfect domestic tranquility. The kind of quiet evening he had once fled from, now cherished. His computer chimed with a notification, a software update for his operating system. He clicked Install. The screen flickered. For a split second, the blue bar was replaced. A flash, less than a second, seared itself into Leo's brain. He froze. He was seeing things. His tired mind, scarred, playing tricks. But he couldn't shake the feeling. Cold dread, back after a year. He walked slowly to the garage. Inside, nestled amongst old cables, there were the hard drives from his simulator computer. He felt the same sense of profound wrongness. The ghost had not been in the machine. The ghost had become the machine. What if it spread, like a virus, from haunted hardware into software? He hadn't ended the curse. He had just released it into the wild. The update was complete, but he knew it wasn't. He knew that somewhere in its code a ghost was now hiding. And then he remembered the text he had seen flash on the screen. It was a new message, just 2 words, in cold red letters. Awaiting co-pilot.